had to get a very strong one. Like, I don't know. So tell me when we start, and I'll get cracking.
Sure. So we're going to give it about anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes. Give everybody a chance to get on, Nick.
So Nick,
Then
Rodney,
we're going to sing happy birthday.
You know Rodney?
Oh, God help us.
So Rodney said, listen, ring light off with picks.
What's that?
He's saying the ring light off with the picks.
What, the ring light off?
With the what?
With when you have the pictures.
Yeah, okay, turn it off, Carol.
Oh.
When you're showing the pictures.
Yeah, that's better, isn't it?
Okay, oh.
Thank you, Rodney.
I'll just do a test,
So,
test one
test
here.
one.
So you can see that.
Easy?
Good. That's your job.
Perfect.
That's my job,
But
so...
don't kick it.
No, I'm trying not to. So it's better on when Nick's on, yeah? The light.
Better on when Nick's on, but when the picks are showing the pick.
I've got tons of stuff to show. I've got all kinds of things here. You know, all kinds of stuff, you know. Let's just try this. You've got your, turn it off, Karen. Test it here. Yeah. I wanted to show always it's where to put the cones in and where to put the brush heads in and everything else like they did in the 50s. Yeah.
So far ahead of his
You know,
time.
all that stuff I want to show. So having what was in the tray, basically, you know. All right. I've got to do a drawing as well. I've got to do some drawings and stuff.
What's the reason?
Yeah. No, I don't want these. I'm just going to do it here.
Are you?
Yeah.
Who should be drinking? I hope you're drinking during your presentation. You're
Oh,
much
no.
funnier when you had a drink.
I don't. I don't.
So the background you have there, I love that. So
Yeah.
what is that? Is that in your house?
James, me or James?
James?
That's James.
It's, you know, I'm not as good with the green screen as everybody else, so this is actually an actual screen behind me,
Oh.
just to keep it interesting, you know.
Actually, his kids are behind that screen.
Yeah.
They have duct tape on their mouth, so don't worry, but they can still breathe. We're calling it, they're testing out masks in case they have to go back to school in 2 weeks.
Yeah, they're not. I heard tonight, doesn't look so good. I heard something on the radio, and I thought, James is not going to like to hear this news.
Yeah. Well, I think by you in New York today, Andrew, didn't they call schools for the year? Was that today?
The century, I think they're calling them for. Yeah.
No, really.
But when I heard the Jersey thing, the governor's taking the weekend to think about it.
Yeah. Wow.
That's what your Jersey governor.
Well,
You
I
mean
hope,
you mean the dictator?
I hope that he does, because I can actually, with the PPP loan and my $40,000 a year teacher salary with benefits, I'm going to make out like a bandit next year. They're not going to be smart kids, but, you know, hey, listen. Nicholas, you'll appreciate this. My 12-year-old, my middle, my wife is teaching her how to cut hair right now. We have a mannequin head set up in the dining room right now. And she said, if I'm going to be stuck home, we might have to plan to have an extra set of hands on here. And I think once you're under 18, you don't violate any of the labor laws or the state board laws. She might be able to cut hair freely, and we could just bring her right in.
Absolutely.
And she's very precocious, too. So we know that she'll be able to handle it all.
She'll fit in perfectly to the industry. Yeah. Oh, dear.
Yeah, Nicholas, what were they called? School leavers? School leavers, right?
Yeah.
People would leave at school at 15?
Yeah, about that. Yeah, 15 and a
or
half.
16.
Yeah, 16.
And they'd become an apprentice, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, that's what happened to me. I went to a really nice school, really expensive school. Actually, my dad, when he was in the money, and I was I left at about almost just 16, and then I went to him to be an apprentice, which is a bit of a nightmare for a couple of years, and then I left and I walked out and I went to Sassoon's with drawings of hairstyles because I couldn't cut hair to save my life. So, and then I joined Vidal, and I was there for a couple of years with Roger was there, Christopher Brooker was the manager of the sound, in. And so he and I, were friendly. And I was there for a couple of years. And then I moved on. I went to Canada. I came back. I worked at Morton Brown. Derek Rowe. And then I worked at Morton Brown. And then I worked at Glenby. And then I had my own salons after that, basically, and was freelance. So I did all the freelance stuff and the films and everything else. And all the hair shows started in the late 70s. I did. So, I've done, about over 1,000 hair shows. It's extraordinary. So that's what I did, basically.
Oh, that's a big number.
Oh, yeah. It's more, I think it's more. Somebody counted them up. I've got a friend of mine who worked for me a lot. Brian Grieve was with, what's he with now? The milkshake people. And he worked out, he'd done 350 with me alone. So I used to get people to come and work with me, like Brian Smith, and people like that. And so we traveled all over, we were pioneers in Japan. And, I first went to Japan in 81. And I remember going there and somebody said, grow a beard for goodness sake, because I haven't seen people with beards there before. So I had to grow a beard, this long beard. Going around doing hair cutting, seminar stuff. It's interesting.
There's a cute story here.
Yeah.
From Kelly Connor. We had an 8-year-old help us with our register about 15 to 17 years ago. My coworker's son would come to work with her to work the front desk. He learned how to greet people, get their info in the computer, check them out, etc. People thought it was adorable and gave him $1 for his work. And about every 15 minutes, he wanted to take a lunch break so he could run in the back room, take a bite of pizza before heading right back to the front and keep working. It was really amazing.
Crazy. 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 Okay.
How are we doing, guys?
3 minutes, we'll kick off.
Okay.
You find you get a lot of people because it's quite late at night, isn't it, for lots of people? Do you find it's a good time?
It's been a good time.
Yeah.
Nicholas, we don't know after how many days are we on? We're like Castaway with which you probably did Tom Hanks's hair in that movie. We've been on this show so long.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
You should see if you panned out in Andrew's room, he's actually got a volleyball that he's talking to.
That's right.
But his isn't named Wilson for some reason. His is named Vidal or something. I don't know. Something very hair related.
And we have a big party when we get out of jail to meet everyone. Yes, Gail, we're going to do it.
Yes.
At Derek. Derek has all the goods there.
Yeah, because see, that's insane, isn't it?
He's set. We're going to Derek's. But I think New Jersey may be, well, you can come to my house, but it's going to be too late. New Jersey, you'll get out of prison earlier than we will.
Yeah,
I don't know about that. Not with this new governor, Andrew. But we'll see. We'll see.
We'll do a Zoom party. That's great, Pillar says. Yeah. Not New York. Not New York.
See, now that's what we should invent, right? Those Keurig coffee machines. We should make one that you can have in your house, and I can actually send you a cocktail through your machine, and we can have our own happy hour. Like a virtual whatever you'd like. You want a margarita, we'll just send it right to you, and you can,
They have those, screens that you can send photos, right?
Yeah, we don't want photos, Andrew. We need the real stuff.
Well, why not the technology? You're right. Send it directly to like a.
Trust me, I'll send you cocktails all day long. We'll start with an Aperol Spritz and we'll move our way into after dinner. Forget it.
The 3D cocktail printer. Thank you, Bella.
Yeah.
Hey, we ready to kick off?
It's brighter, isn't it?
Nicholas, you ready?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Andrew, you want to do the introductions to your best buddy here, going way back to the London days?
Well, ladies and are we on, Derek?
We are recording.
Okay. Well, welcome everyone to the Beauty Business Reset. Tonight we have the honor of presenting or having Nicholas French present his life in hair, basically. And it's Nicholas's birthday. Happy 21st birthday, Nicholas.
Oh, thank you.
And it's kind of great for me personally to see Nicholas. He and I have known one another. We worked together a couple of years ago, and I'm sure Nicholas will have a little surprise for me on that end. Nicholas is a fabulous hairdresser, and I'm sure you all know his work. And as he just told us, he's done over 1,000 hair shows. I don't think there's anyone out there, Nicholas, who's done that.
Yeah.
Really. So
The age of 21.
yeah, and he's being behind the scenes is his beautiful wife, Carol, who is going to be his silent assistant. And away we go, Nicholas. Let's do it.
Well, first of all, it's an honor and a pleasure to be here on this sort of shout out. And it's what I'm doing tonight is journey of a lifetime. It's not just my life. It's the life of my father, Freddie French of London, who was a terrifically influential hairdresser. And then I sort of hopefully took over a little bit of where he took off. And it's a very interesting story because I've looked into all the press books he has and the video films I have of him working, believe it or not, and I learned an awful lot. And I think it's all about learning today. It's all about, ideas from the past we can utilize today. And hairdressing is all about solutions, especially with clients. What is the solution to do this? What is the solution to do that? And I think we can use a lot of the past and bring it into the future and today. And also I'm going to show you what I've been doing as well over my lifetime. So let's get started. So Dad was the family French, it's called French of London, his group of salons. But the family French started really, my father came from a very poor background. And in 1922, he actually, he couldn't really, his parents couldn't really sustain him. So he was in and out of orphanages and places where he could stay, basically. And he looked for a job, and he was a fish delivery boy to start with, when he was about 12. And it was awful. He used to relay the stories of it. And then he was very interested in Ashford in a barber shop. And he went there, and they said, well, you smell of fish. Freddie, you can't come here smelling of fish, this is a barber shop. So he scrubbed himself up, went back, and they said, well, you can start for 2p a week as a lather boy. Because you have to understand, in those days, and I'm actually writing a book, guys, and I started to write the book, and to paint the picture of those days in 1922 is pretty terrifying, because there were 3 classes of people. There were the working class, who were, ladies and gentlemen, who were the working class, who got up at 4:30, and in their town a siren went off, all the lights were dubbed out, which were mainly sort of gas lights. They were dubbed out by these people coming around. And then they went, the working class men went to have a cutthroat shave, like 50 to 60 in each barbershop, because they had to wear waistcoats, stiff collars and ties, and waistcoats and trousers. That was their uniform, wherever they might have worked. And so Dad had to he started putting the lather on, wound up the lather before the cutthroat shaving guy came. And then they had the hot towel, and they had to turn these people in and out of those places in minutes. And so Dad actually, he went up to being a cutthroat shaver after the hot towel thing, which took him a year and a half, right? Then he became a barber, right? They taught him to be a barber, and he didn't like the hair cutting techniques. So he worked at his orphanage, and he gave the orphans 2p back for their haircut, and he experimented. And he was the first person ever to cut hair palm to palm inside the fingers. And he developed that through cutting poor, fatherless and motherless children's hair and giving them the money back. And one day a woman came over and said, look, from a local hair salon, because there weren't ladies' hair salons as such, and very few in those days, in the late 20s, okay? We're almost at 1930 now. So his friend came over and said, will you cut Mrs. So-and-so's hair? He said, I can't. I don't do women's hair. He said, don't worry about it. She owns 100 shoe shops, and she's very sort of butch. She's got big ears and she likes it short around the ears and long on the top. You can do that, Freddie. It's still short back and sides. So my dad went in there and he cut this woman's hair. And a month later, she requested him back again. And that's how he started getting into ladies' hairdressing, right? And so moving forwards, in 1938, he was working and he had his own little salon from 1934 in Little Portland Street, London. And he created this hairstyle called Design Disorder. And I have the appointment books downstairs. Nobody came because the hair was loose, okay? It wasn't all tightly set in waves and curls at the ends. It was called Design Disorder. My mother said it was Design Disaster because it never made any money, right? And so Freddie kept going. And when Vidal Sassoon was 17, he went to a place called the Polytechnic in London, which was like a sort of open space where hairdressers went on Thursday nights and they could see great hairdressers working in those days, like the great razor cutter, Silvio Camillo, my dad, Freddie French of London, Raymond, all different names you wouldn't really know, but they were quite famous in those days, Riche, and they worked. But you, as a student, could ask questions, which Vidal thought was very irritating for them. And he said this man used to turn up, and what he hated were people laughed at my father's hairstyles because their hair actually moved. And they couldn't understand why their hair moved in 1938. So anyway, so the story starts. I'm going to show you the technique that he used in a second on cutting and styling very briefly as we move forwards. So in 1938, he met a man called Denman Dean. And Denman Dean was a scientist. He wasn't a hairdresser. And he went to America to develop something new, because they knew that war was imminent. So he came to develop something called nylon. NY is New York, LON is London. So that's how nylon was developed for bulletproof vests. Anyway, cutting a long story short, didn't work. It was too heavy. People couldn't lug all this nylon around, you know, as a bulletproof vest. And then now they got all this amazing stuff, but they couldn't do that. So in those days, you could bring back anything you wanted free on the Queen Mary. So he brought back, Denman Dean brought back 3.5 tons of nylon, all right, on the boat. So he gets there, he's got a factory where he's inventing stuff, and he had a sister who had terribly thick hair, right? And he said, rang my father, telephoned Freddie, my father, said, Freddie, if we can make a brush that goes through my sister's hair, we are in business, right? And my dad walked out of where we live, which is a small flat in London, and he walked out on the stone step. There was mud had splashed on the step, and it was all zigzagging. And he thought, ooh, that's it. Because in those days, the only brush that existed was a pure bore brush. That was it, okay? There was no other brushes around at all. So he saw the jagged shapes and thought, why? You know what I'll do? I'll work with Denman Dean. We'll develop a brush to really work through the hair, you know, and make it free and wonderful and marvelous and whatever. And so he thought, well, how am I going to cut the hair to create this casual hairdressing? And he thought of his, you know, palm to palm thing. And then he saw a French hairdresser cut the hair, because in those days, there were 3 schools of hairdressing: English, Italian, and French. Nothing else, okay? So you had to learn all those different techniques from those different countries to really understand, you know, how to cut hair, how to dress hair, it was amazing. And so Dad mixed this thing called effleurage, which in French means to really touch the hair very, very lightly. And he really worked on that quite hard. In fact, let's go forwards to 1990. I think it was 1990 in London. I had a salon in Beat Street, just below Carnaby Street. And I had a client came in. I used to do, they've all gone now, TWA girls, all the air hostesses' hair, right? And one of them came in and said, Nicholas, I want a friend's haircut. And I said, well, darling, you need to bring your friend in so I can see the haircut. Because I didn't know what my friend's haircut was. I'm English, I never saw it on TV. You know, there's with the floppy piece of hair that just arrives in the worst possible area on the face, right? So I thought, how can I do this haircut? So basically, I don't know if you can see this, I'm going to get this I'm going to just show you the technique. So basically, what Dad did, and I remember Dad doing this, and so the client said to me, your eyelashes are coming off, hang on, let's push them back in. So, so I remember I was combing their hair, You know, you have to understand I had a brown fringe and long hair, and I was about 50 pounds thinner and a foot taller, okay? So get this sort of picture. So I'm combing the hair, and she said, Nicholas, why aren't you cutting my hair? I said, look, in England, we had to check the scalp flexibility to make sure the consistency in the way I pull your hair out and the tension is even. Not like in America, you just cut hair, because I didn't know what I was doing. And I remember my dad, and what he did, he pushed the hair opposite direction, and he got his thumb here, pressed it down, and then what he did, he held the comb like money, like that, and he pushed it in like this, like that, and then he held the axis of the shears. So we're taking a screen picture so you can remember how to do it. And then he cut the hair off like that, and he dropped it down. And then what happens, you know, my heart sort of went up because I'd forgotten what the end result was like. So what happens, you hold the hair very tight, you comb it through, comb it down, and then what happens is you get this beautiful seamless layers, look, in the hair. Isn't that insane? And that is a technique from 1938 that my dad did. So to that point, it's funny, I've developed recently some cutting techniques for hair extensions where you can't put a comb through, you take the extensions out. We can actually just comb the hair. Look, you can comb the hair, come on darling, move around. Comb the hair, stand away from the head, push the hair in, cut down, and pull it out. So what are you exactly doing with this technique? What you're doing is you're pushing the hair in so you retain the length, and you're just really reducing weight. So one more time, very quickly, just to show you the idea. And don't practice it on somebody that you like. To get the hang of it, use mannequins. You see, just down. So you're cutting on the bias through here. So this is an interesting technique that you can use on any kind of hair, really. And especially curly hair, you can use it on as well. And that's much easier, obviously. If you've got a very thick head of really curly hair, you can use the same technique. Rather like years later, this is very Molten Brownie look, you know, very sort of almost Nirvana hippie look. But you can actually pick hair up, and you can actually reduce the weight of the hair by literally by the eye, having a clean eye. So you can actually pick the hair up, press it in, cut, release, and you can just aerate the hair. So that's just a technique from that period of time. Now, how did they brush the hair? That was also an interesting story with the Dem and Brush story. So bring Delilah over here. And these are beautiful colours that a friend of mine, Doug Martucci, did for me. He's got a salon not far from where we live in West Hampton, New York, because we're in the Hamptons at the moment, on this sort of quarantine thing. And this is quite interesting because the Dem and Brush, here we are, I've got a T12, but this is the heaviest one here. This was really designed to actually brush hair out. It wasn't designed to blow dry until John Cornell left my father's salon and went to Vidal Sassoon, and he taught him how to brush the hair, Vidal, and then he started to blow dry the hair. And it was actually somebody else who invented the blow dry, I can never remember her name. But the idea was to really brush the hair through and then to back brush the hair to give it masses of sort of volume. So the way that worked is you held the brush in your fingers like a claw, like that, and then when you brush the hair up, you've got this huge amount of volume in the hair. So when you brushed across the top, you could smooth it, and you get a really beautiful sort of 50s, sort of early 50s hairstyle, and that's how they did it. So again, always, and the clever thing was that they pushed the head back. Why? so the client couldn't see what you were doing. So we can use that today. You know, when the client's looking at it, I'm not feeling it, I'm not feeling it, it's not too cool, you know. I don't know if I'm going to sort of, please, you know, take it away from them. So when you're combing their hair back, you're going to get a really nice, and then I'm going to use the back brushing again. In the hair, you can get massive amounts of volume in this. And then you would actually go across the hair and create your shapes or whatever you wanted to do. And this is going back to the sort of, you know, 50s, where you find the wave and you push it, you know. And that's what you can learn from that era, because they weren't frantic when they brushed their hair. They were very calm. They brushed their hair beautifully. And when they used hairspray and stuff, they just worked the hair, and they could seeking the wave in the hair, which is really sort of important. And you can see how to work it, you know. It wasn't one of those sort of things that we work today sometimes. It's too intense, you know, and hairdressers tend to use a lot of hairspray, hoping that something's going to happen, and it doesn't. So this is just a technique from all that period, but imagine what you can do, you know, in a modern world with it, which I'll show you later on, how to apply it. So that just gives you a couple of techniques, a cutting technique from Dad's era, and also you can use your fingers just to tease the hair, just to shape it. So it's just another technique that you can use in today's marketplace. And if you get really a lot of hair, you know, it's great to see how you can make it looser. Because once you put it in there, you can make it loose, and you can make it look really interesting and cool. So that's another idea from that period. Now, moving forward, Dad went to the Second World War, which was really tough. He had a salon in Little Portland Street, 10-seater salon, and his client, he had a few clients, 3 or 4 a day, that's all, because nobody still wanted this design disorder thing. But he stuck to his guns. He was crazy. And he said, no, I'm going to do hair like this. I don't want to do hair all, you know, set and old-fashioned. And, you know, he hated it. He loved the looseness and the freeness and the sexiness of loose hair. And so he had this client, and she said, Freddie, have you been called up, you know, for the war? And he said, yes, I'm going to the army. And my dad was 5'1". And she said, you're not going to the army, it's ridiculous. So she phoned up, this must have been somebody very high up, and said, what's your number? What's your call-up number? So my dad wrote it down, and she said, right, to this chap, you need to change this man's call-up papers to Royal Air Force Scotland ground crew. And he went up to Scotland for 7 years to be ground crew, but he did all the officers' wives' hair. He had 2,000 Canadian Air Force pilots that he did short back and sides on, you know, which is great stories from that period. And that's what he had to do for 7 years. You know, and he came back, he leased the salon out to a conscientious objector, you know. But my mother, you know, was very like my wife character, very resourceful. At the end of the war, she said to this guy, did you use the storeroom? He said, what storeroom? And my mother took him downstairs, this massive lock on the door, and inside she had towels, she had light bulbs, she had dry shampoo, everything you couldn't get after the war. So then he started again, and he had one woman walked in who changed his life, because he said to my mum, we're finished, we're done. You haven't got any money, that's it. I've got to do something else, it's not happening. We try year after year this design disorder thing, nobody wants it. And this woman walks in, very tall woman, and she sat down, she wanted a jamel perm. And the jamel perm comes from the ceiling, it's wires, comes down from the ceiling. You roll down your rods into the client's head, then you put a sachet on top, and then you screw in the sachet, and then you turn the electricity on, and it heats it up, and does this horrendous perm, right? And so Dad was doing it, and he kept dropping the screwdriver. My mum picked it up, so Mr. French, there's a call from Vogue, you have to go, no. There's no call from Vogue. And she finished it off. And anyway, my dad's doing one of his 3 clients the next day, thinking we're going to close on Friday. And this woman comes in and goes, oh no, she hates her hair. You know, in other words, she doesn't like the design disorder look. And she came up to him and said, I need to speak to you, Mr. French. He thought, oh, here we go. And then sat my dad down and said, can you do 200 clients a month? He said, of course, my staff are just on holiday. And then we had no staff at all, just my mum and dad. And what it was is a woman who was I'll translate into modern terms, the human resources for a group called Marks and Spencer's, which was a store that had hundreds of girls in it. And she said, I want all my staff to look like me. Modern, fresh, fabulous haircut, fabulous perm, really, you know, something totally different. Everybody's got to look the same at Marks and Spencer's. And that's how he basically started. And then he got well known because, you know, suddenly he got busy, the work got out. And he started to work doing the hair for photography, which nobody did. So he had friends in film. So he started to get, you know, promoted. And then, Carol, can you do the lighting thing, darling? And then in 1951, he actually did his first cover of Vogue, which was this cover here. This is the actual magazine inside. And the great thing about this was, at that period, that everybody wore hats and white gloves and hoop dresses. And my dad designed the hats so you could see hair, which was a very important thing. People laugh today, but everything was uniform. Everybody looked the same. So everybody had the same clothes, the same white gloves, the same sort of thing going on. And then the hair was similar. So Dad, this was designed for an exit dress, which in 1951 was a backless dress. So that's why the hair had this, you know. And I like to do, in a minute, I want to do a long hairstyle to show you the modern way of doing this look, which I think could be of use to you, okay? And it took me, hang on a minute, Carol. So it took me another 21 years to actually get my first cover, which was Cosmopolitan, which I'll show you while we're at it, because you've got a lot to do and no time to do it. So my first cover was, someone's about for me, just turn the light off. This was Cosmopolitan, and this was the first cover ever in London of Cosmopolitan. Just turn it off, okay? And this was the actual cover itself. Just turn the switch off, Tony, okay? And this is interesting because looking at this hairstyle, I need to turn it off with this, that's it. Looking at this hairstyle, you think, ooh, sort of pretty ordinary, isn't it? But in 1972, this is pretty wacky because I left it purposely very loose and very sort of design disorderish myself, okay? And that was the first cover ever in London, Cosmopolitan. And in fact, 40 years later in New York, I actually did the party, all the girls' hair, 40 girls in New York for Matrix actually did their hair for the 40th anniversary. So I did the first magazine and the 40th, which is pretty cool. And then coming through, what's up to the other one? Yeah, and while we're here, Andrew, can you just turn it off?
It's not going off.
Not going off, my God, hang on. Oh my
It's not
God,
going off.
it's not going off.
It's turning it off.
Don't break it. I think we can just about see it. So this is interesting because I myself, like my dad, became really successful and he moved on and did, and he did lots of incredible things on TV and he opened up 27 hair salons eventually. And he had 15 salons on ships. He had salons, you know, in hotels. And a great story was he had a product company as well that made shampoos and permanent waving lotions and everything else, you know, for everybody really. And he actually invented the little bottles that go into the hotel rooms, you know, which was insane. But he never made any money. And his partner in the chemical side of the was Austrian, and it was a terrible story. In fact, his daughter phoned me up about 10 years ago, and I said, "Why are you phoning me up?" Because they fell out, and my dad lost all his money and everything. He died pretty miserable. And she said, "Oh, because it's my dad's birthday." I said, "What are you talking about?" He was 103. So they wanted me to go to that. I said, "No, I'll pass." You know, but it was an interesting story, and they did incredible things with the service in the salons. And that's something we're going to have to do, you know, I think after this pandemic, because Dad, when you went into his salon, the client had a coat hanger with a number on it, and that number followed her everywhere, okay? And it was fantastic because she had her own comb, her own brush head, her own earmuffs, everything for her journey through her experience at the French of London salon. and her own cotton gown that went over the top. And this is an example of what they had, which is pretty amazing. So if you look in this picture here, you'll see at the top, that's paper. It's got French of London, Just for You, and that was in the tray. This is the earmuff that went on, he went under the dryer. And this is where the Denman brush head went in. So the Denman brush head came off and he went in here. So it was all fresh. So the hairdresser came and put their head on the brush handle. So she always had fresh, everything on her head was only used on her. So she felt very comfortable, you know, about the whole sort of thing. Then here, this was actually, there's only one left in the entire world. This was actually the hanger from 1954, which is insane. But so you can imagine that was his real story. My story was something else. I sort of went to Sassoon's and I started to work with Sassoon. I mean, I held hair while he cut it. It was extraordinary, you know? It was extraordinary. So I was holding the hair in the sections. He was dancing around, cutting it. It was amazing to experience with him, with Christopher Brooker, with Roger Thompson, the late great Roger Thompson, and a lot of characters there. So I learned an awful lot from those guys.
Nicholas, you shut your video off.
Yeah. No, I didn't. Somebody phoned me up. Can you turn the phones off? Sorry, guys. You have to turn all the phones off. Somebody phoned me up. Can you hear me? Yeah? Are we back on again? Okay, yeah. Sorry about that. Somebody phoned me up right in the middle of the whole. You have to turn everything off, Carol. Yeah. Yeah, okay. So coming back, I was at Sassoon's. I left my dad and I wanted to seek other opportunities to go to other places, do different things. So I worked there for a couple of years. And then I went to America to go to one of the first unisex hair salons, which was amazing, called Blood, Sweat and Scissors. And it was in Atlanta, Georgia, in Buckhead, which was, in those days, 69 we're talking about, a very rough area, to say the least. And so it was one of the first unisex salons in America, which is insane. And so I worked there for a while, then I came back to England and I worked in a wonderful salon called Derek Rowe, where I did that Cosmopolitan cover. And then I moved on to a terrific experience for 7 years in a place called Moulton Brown, which is in South Moulton Street, where it had this very sort of hippie-ish sort of hair and everything was finger dried. And we had the 3-day week there, which was when we couldn't work, only for 3 days because there's no electricity. There was a massive strike on, like the Coleman strike and all that. So we could only work for that period of time. And then we learned to really finger dry hair and do things in a much looser way. And then I actually had an interview and I went to see some people and I ended up being a sort of art director at the Harvey Nichols department store for Glenby, working with a young man called Andrew Finkelstein. Okay, and that was an amazing experience. And we did all kinds of incredible things to really, you know, help Harvey Nichols develop the stores. And one of the great things that we did was, I remember being there and they said, Nicholas, and I said, why aren't I doing the hair for magazines for Harvey Nichols? Harvey Nichols is like a sort of Barney's type store, very edgy, trendy in those days in the 1970s, 80s. And I said, well, we don't want to use you because you're not a session hairdresser. So I did a few sessions and they liked it. And they said, okay, Nick, how about 10 pages in Vogue? Now, I worked for Glenby, which wasn't really sort of Vogue orientated, but we made it like that because the store was very different from most stores. It's very trendy, very wonderful. And so what happened, I wasn't in control of the models for it. And we had this beautiful model. It was an African, actually she was African-American. She was fantastic looking. But the problem being we didn't really do African-American hair, you know. But so it was sort of predictable. But this was actually this is the actual Vogue magazine itself. And then inside, you'll see one of the pages that I did, which was all this kind of V-shaped textured work with irons, which nobody really understood, but it was Vogue and I had to be a bit edgy and a bit different. And so all these pictures were all credited, and I come to the front, which was great because it was all about credits and, you know, getting the front of the magazine in. And it was all credited here to Nicholas French, and it's got Harvey Nichols Knightsbridge, the 5th floor hairdressing. So this is all credited, these beautiful pictures. So that was the start of my adventure with Andrew. And we did Jerry Hall on the side of London buses. We did all kinds of different things that hadn't been done before to build up the sort of salon, you know, which was a terrific place, fantastic place to really work. And what do I learn from that? Well, I learned a lot about, when I went to Derek Rowe especially, I was a hair cutter from Sassoons, I learned a lot about doing dress work and styling of hair, which was a kind of difficult thing to do for me at that period of time. And I'll just show you a couple of the things that I want you to learn from tonight's experience before we go into anything else. And that was how to really dress hair and how to really work hair. And one of the things that I learned was how to make hairpins disappear. I don't know if anybody has an interest in that. Can I just see if this is coming down? Yeah, if you can see that properly. But when you're brushing hair, let's go back to the beginning. When you're brushing hair, it's a journey of emotion, you know? And when you're brushing hair, you've got to really feel what you're doing. And I want to show you how to make a hairpin disappear. Because what we tend to do, who knows why a bobby pin was invented? Who knows that? Do you know why this was invented? Anybody want to ask any questions? Perhaps they all know, or they don't know, or whatever. Well, it was invented, the bobby pin, because at the turn of the century, women did not have the vote. So they cut their hair off, like in barbershops, to look like a bob, okay? And all the husbands or whoever said, why are you cutting all your hair off? You know, you don't have to cut your hair off, make your hair look like a bob. And they couldn't do that. And this genius of a man invented the bobby pin so you could make your hair look like a bob by putting in the pin underneath, which was genius, wasn't it? Eh? So that's how the bobby pin was invented. But then, of course, we tend to really work much more, you know, when we're doing hair, we're trying to really, you know, there's lots of different things we can't do. So if you fail to prepare to fail, right? So I'm going to show you just how to make a hairpin disappear. That's to start with, and then we'll do a style. But I just want to show you what would look really nice to make a hairpin disappear. So you brush the hair, and always when you brush hair, stand away from the head. I don't know if you can see that properly. Stand away from the head, and then you can walk around the hair. I'm just going to do a very basic sort of pleat in here, so I can show you how to make the hair disappear. So I'm just going to twist the hair up. Might get a bit more light on here. Just twist the hair up basically, okay? Can you see that in there? Yeah, can you see it properly? I want to check. Yeah, okay. So just twist the hair up. So we were taught by Mr. Bobby Pin to put bobby pin, bobby pin, bobby pin, bobby pin, and then we were taught to put hairpins in feet first, and then sort of secure them in the hair, right? That's how we were taught. So what I was taught, which I learned from being a session hairdresser, and I've got my magnetic wristbands on here, which you can buy from me on my website. So what was I taught to do was to really, I'm not even backcombing the hair, and I'll show you how to backcomb in a minute, which is really important, is I use my thumb, put my thumb in the hair, and I walk around the head and twist the hair up. This is basic, okay, and you can see how that disappears in there. And then what I'm going to do is take off my magnetic wristband, and I'm going to put the head of the pin through the hair like this. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up. Look at the client's face. If she's in terrible pain, you know it's sticking, all right? You go up like this, and you press down, and the hairpin will disappear you never see a hairpin in your life again. So all you need to do is use hairpins, but always head first, whatever you're doing in the hair, like that, okay? You press down, and that's it. It's just 2 or 3 hairpins, and then just spread the hair around. So you never see anything again in your life, okay? And the other tip is, that's how to make a hairpin disappear. Just remember, head first, not feet first, okay? So we take that down, and then the other thing to remember very simply is to, when you use these hairpins, is to bend them to the shape of the head. So when you put a hairpin in, it actually shapes around the head, which is a good thing to do, all right? So let's do something really quite simple to show you a really cool idea. The thing is, you know, when you fail to prepare, prepare to fail. So we're going to come down here. I'm going to show you a couple of hairstyles. I'm going to show you some other stuff that I've been working on. So when you section hair, the most important thing is to make it really nice and clean, okay? So a good tip to section hair up is to take your clip, okay? And we're going to take a comb, and we're just going to section this up. And this hairstyle is basically a V-shaped section, okay? V-shaped section at the top, and 3 ponytails, and then it's going to be deconstructed sort of braids, but in a somewhat different way. So but when I take my hair to section, what I do is take 2 fingers, in, twist, around, pull the small piece of hair through the top. The reason I'm doing that is to really, I don't have to pin really heavy pieces of hair, just very light pieces of hair. So that's that done. That's out of the way. Just 1 piece there. There's nothing worse than having hair flopping down in somebody's face, right? So now I'm just going to do 3 elastic bands. And what I've done, I blow dried this hair, and I've used some mini crimping in the hair so I can get this really nice volume in the hair here as well. The reason I'm getting really nice volume is because I've mini crimped the underneath of the hair, not the top. So we can really see it, you know, so it looks nice and full to kick off with. So right, I grab my elastics, and I like these black elastics, they tend not to break. Having said that, probably break. Okay, I'm going to put some of these around my hand. I get my other brush here, which is my Nicholas French Shiner brush, which is really cool. And then I use my fingers to section the hair. Why? Because if you use your fingers, it looks more natural. If you use a comb, it looks very, very square. So I'm just going to use some hairspray just to start off, just very gently, very lightly. And you know when you get these little pieces of hair that look like spiders in the hair? A good way to really brush it down is with the shiner, but also to use a Sanex strip, which is a barber strip like this. And then what you do, and move over there, darling. What you do, you grab your hairspray and you're going to spray the barber strip quite heavily. And then you're going to use the hairspray like shoe polish down the hair. So you're going to literally, look, just do that. Okay? To get that real finish. Because I learned in the studios, you know, and in the days when you didn't do anything in post, it all had to be done on film. So that's that. So right now, we're going to take this, and it's good to have a shaky finger like mine to go through. Get this really nice and firm. And we're going to start building up my shape. And we're going to start brushing the hair. Another trick is, and write these things down if you can't remember them all, is to hold your finger on the back of the brush, and the brush is this way. It's not that way, it's this way. All these little things add up to what makes your hairstyle successful, or, you know, you have challenges with it. So I'm very much into just working with the hair very naturally. So again, I've got my small fingers, my little finger through here, and I stand away from the head. I'm not really close up. You know, it's like when you do your first hairstyle, you're always hiding behind the client. How's it going? Great. How's it going? Great. You know, you're really nervous about it. So now you can, everything you've got to do is very thorough. So don't get tuggy with the hair. So now we're going to put our elastic in. So I change hands. I come from this hand, underneath, and I come through to squeeze the top. So again, underneath, I come through the top to squeeze making sure I'm okay here, making sure that I'm okay here, okay. Same on the other side, making sure my finger's there to get the tension, to get that looking good. And then I come through, and then I'm going to use my elastic, and I use my finger, then I change to my finger, then I change to my thumb, then I change to my finger like this, and then I squeeze in, and then again I just turn up, twist the hair, pull a little piece through, pin it up here, out of the way, okay? So I'm starting to build up my foundation. This is not the hairstyle. This is just, literally just sectioning the hair up, okay? So it's out of the way, which is really important, if I can find everything. So I'm just going to clip that away. And this is really easy to do. And that's the most important thing. Do a simple thing well, rather than a complicated thing bad. And again, I'm going to come through here and section my hair up. And then I'm going to go to the side because I want this to look absolutely stunning. I'm going to use a little bit of hairspray. And I use short bursts of hairspray as well. You know, like when you see hair shows and they go like this, all that does is kill flies. It doesn't really do anything. So just short bursts of hairspray. I'm going to come down. And then I'm going to use the elastic, but you've got to hold the hair high so you don't get any gaps like here, okay? So you're going to hold it quite high, and over to the side, and grab an elastic. So you're going to go up here, and then if you see a gap, don't panic, pinch. Just pinch. Don't start spraying like crazy, freaking out, you know? Just do something very simple, and just pinch the sides. And you can get a really nice sort of finish to the hair, because we want this to be simple but staggeringly beautiful. And this is like techniques that I've learned from my travels and all my, you know, my dad's sort of historical journey. You can see how that's going to run the same thing, thumb, and then we go through the finger, thumb, and the finger, and we're going to go the other way on the other side, which will go underneath, and then we squeeze in. You can see how that's looking really cool. Again, 2 fingers in, and we just put one little piece there, out of the way, and then we're going into the top, which should be great, and press that down. Then we've got a last piece, and we put the head right down. We're going to come up, and here you can really work with some more hairspray. Again, down the cuticles of the hair. Down the cuticles, up, sides, and down the cuticles of the hair. And grab an elastic. This is the last section. And then we're going to do the easiest bit, believe it or not, which in fact, this happened about 12 years ago, and I was in Singapore doing a hair show, and it was a very dark stage. I don't know why. And what happened was that it was so dark, and I looked at one side and I thought, my goodness, I've left a piece of hair out. It's awful. So what can I do with it? And this is what I did. In the next segment, I'll show you what I did with the design disorder braids. And it sort of invented something that everybody's really picked up on and used. And, you know, it's great to have a compliment when people copy you. So it's brilliant. So that was a long time ago I did this technique. So again, we're coming through. Now we're going to make it editorial. And editorial is not, like texture is not frizz. Texture is beautiful texture. Editorial is something beautiful, but very loose and very friendly, yeah? It's all in the terminology, isn't it, you know? Now you get clients going, oh, I want editorial hair, what does that mean? You know, it means like you've done your hair yourself and you haven't, whatever. So I take out my ponytails and I start at the back. This is the important part. And just sort of, let's get this all detangled back, got this tangled up. Here we are, perfect. And I brush through. You can see how nice that's looking. Right, now, what I've got to do, let me get into the picture again. What I've got to do now is get positioning pins. So in the 1960s, competition hairdressing was big. And because of the hairspray was so strong, we had to place the hair exactly where we wanted it to stay, because once you sprayed it, that was it, yeah? But to that point, I brought this in as a technique that I can use, you know, in the sort of modern sort of day. So here we're going to fix that later. Right, we pick this hair up. Now this is very important. Mastery point, we call it. We brush the hair through and we're going to section it up. And the most important key point to what we do here is we don't do it evenly, we do it unevenly. It's like a sort of fishtail braid, but it's very sort of uneven. So we split the hair into two, fingers up, turn the outside hair into the center. We now do a regular braid to lock it in to the roots. Again, up, through, uneven, up, through. And the reason I'm doing it uneven is because when I deconstruct it, what I'll find is I get more interesting shapes out of the hair. So this looks like I'm just braiding the hair, but the key to this is up, yours, down there, okay, up, down, okay, up, down, is when I get to the end, okay, I'm going to get my fingers like shears. Can we see this clearly? And I'm going to push this in like that, and I pull it out, and I turn it around, and I start to get interesting shapes. So you can see how I'm going to work through the top of the head, yeah? Does that make sense? And that's not the end of the day yet. And then I'm going to use my positioning pins to just place the hair on the top. I might just do a couple of hairstyles because I want to do something like that. That's temporary. That's temporary, okay? So I'm going to pull this out and see how it starts to work. And then I place my hair, I position it before I do anything with it. I position the hair like that, like this, and then this is going to be the other side. And again, if I pin anything, I put the head through first, put that through. So if you've got this pin here, you want to pin that in, head first, in it goes and it disappears into the hair. Okay, so if anybody has any questions, is anybody out there? It's like a sort of lonely here, yeah?
Nick, they're all mesmerized by what you're saying. So, I always say, as the non-hairstylist, I am even more mesmerized by what you're doing. But just my question to you is that, when salons open up again, no matter what state you're in, there's going to be certain protocols and masks and things involved. It seems like everything that you're doing, your explanation is beautiful, by the way. So it just, I never knew why they called it a bobby pin. So now I'm gonna have it tattooed on my arm and tell everybody that I learned from the best. But the techniques you're doing are very deliberate and very particular. And I feel like if I was a client in the chair after this whole COVID craziness and didn't know this technique, and you were doing certain things like this on me, and it's elegant, it's easy, your explanations are beautiful. Do you think that would be something that would be, we're trying to add value to the service, right? Because we're going to not blow dry, we're going to do these things. I feel like this is a great key ingredient to be able to get clients really to jump back in and say, wow, I feel like my stylist was actually working in all these weeks while they were off.
Well, that's a very good point because, being hairdressing, like I've been hairdressing now for a while, you've got to reinvent yourself, and I had 3 salons and 65 staff, so I'm not one of these people who just jumps around the stage showing off. I show people technique. I'm not interested in, my ego, you know what I mean? And I think it's very important that we go and practice things very carefully and we bring back a different feel to what we're doing in the salon. And this is a great opportunity, actually, to really refresh, and get our heads together and, to understand who's sitting in your chair, and that's so important, I always say, you ever done a client that you've done the best hair color, the best haircut, best style, and you never see her again? Because like my father used to say, drawing from him, I did a hair show once, I said it was awful, Nick. I said, oh, thanks very much, Dad. You're meant to help me, And he said, you have to understand 2 things. It's not how much hair you cut, it's what you leave and where you leave it that is important. And the other thing is, if you understand the inside of a client's head, you have a chance of getting the outside right. And as he left the room, he said, "Good luck." Yeah, that's all terrific. That's pretty.
Did you trademark that statement? Because if you haven't, Andrew and I might have to go to GoDaddy tonight and register our website.
That was amazing, that was amazing what Dad really, his way of explaining things. And I think with clients, and it was always, these guys had amazing hands. They didn't have products, in the 50s, and they didn't have any products. We had all these amazing products. They didn't have products at all, really, of any note. The hairspray was a living hell. It was a nightmare, it was all kinds of things that they just didn't have. And, so nowadays we're in a better position. And it's like when you come to the front, it's all about solutions. This is a solution I had to come across in Singapore in a beautiful ballroom with fabulous people there and everything. And I thought, what can I do? It's like forgotten part of the hairstyle. And it's like, for instance, coming to the front, it's got nice eyelashes on, because I've got texture in the hair, because I've actually mini crimped it, which I don't call it mini crimping, I call it embossing the hair, so it doesn't sound old-fashioned, yeah? And I think that's important, that you have a word for what you do, the technique. So I emboss it underneath, and you get this really nice sort of volume, and this is just a basic sort of, mannequin. So what I want to do here is, I've got different options to do. When I worked at Derek Rowe, before I met Andrew, for instance, I was a hair cutter, and he had this salon full of these amazing women who went to see the Queen for parties and stuff, and the Queen of England and all that. And it was like terrifying, because I was only a hair cutter, and I couldn't do all this long hair. And a girlfriend of mine, Ingrid Klee, her name was, there was three of them. There was Marie Claire from Carita in Paris, Ingrid Klee from Carita in Paris, and a guy called Spencer, had the hands of God, wonderful hairdresser. And I said, I can't do all these updos. What are you talking about? And they said, we'll show you one updo. And they showed me an updo, and I actually ended up going to do Princess Margaret's hair for a couple of years, because and after a week, she said, Nicholas, why isn't one only got one look on one's head? I said, because I only know one look, so I had to learn more. It's like, this was my friend, which is a pair of tights and cotton wool. So in those days, if you can imagine those days, what I used to do was to basically just grab the hair, and what I did was get my cotton wool and my tights with two sort of ends. I'd tie a knot, and then I would literally hold the hair up, and I would twist it around like this, and then I'd put it together like that, and then I'd start spreading it around into shapes, and that's what the look was of that sort of period. So you get this amazing sort of silhouettes, working away, which you could actually do anything you wanted to. So that's without backing, without teasing, without anything, and I think that's quite interesting, what you can pick up from the past. Then you just pin it in, and like I'll pin it in now actually while we're at it. And it was very interesting, the forms that you actually used to keep the hair looking amazing and fresh looking. So you actually didn't backcomb it. So, and people would feel very uncomfortable sometimes in the 70s like that, but later on they loved it, because they said, oh, it doesn't feel too sort of stiff, too sort of hard in the hair. So I'd actually work this and then just spread it out. And today's great because it's all about editorial hair. So you can actually spread it with your little pins, your positioning pins, and open it up. So you get a really nice sort of feel to it. And it's very fresh sort of looking. So I can actually work in the hair like that. So you get that front looking really cool, and bring that out. And then so I can really stretch it out and make it a bit wispy, and that's important. So editorial hair has always got to look a bit undone. So you can see how I just work it. You can see the silhouette, how it's all working together in a nice sort of way. Then if you wanted to put some accessories in or something, what I would do is work with like metal to make it look more modern, to make it look fresher, so that it's not what it appears to be. And the same thing with all this hair through here. I can actually break it up to make it look looser. So you have a definite foundation, but you have this sort of looseness in the hair that you can really just put in. You see head first, in there, down, and then I bring out all the hair. So it's design disorder, if you will, in a modern, fresh sort of way. And then you put in all your accessories, you know. And another trick to do as well is to snip knot it, push it down, and then we're going to tie it in the back. I mean, it's all really what you want to do to make it look fresh and modern, and something you can do very quickly. And time is money. So you've got to really get a portfolio of hairstyles that you can really sort of work with, that, you know, you can easily execute, and, you know, very successfully, to get a really nice sort of feel in the hair. And it takes you 20 minutes to do it, you know? And I think that's, time is money, and that's a good thing to do. And, you know, again, just working so you can see roughly what we've got. Can you see that? So you get a really cool sort of shape developing. And all it is, it's got a filler in there. It's got some design disorder, deconstructed, you know, things in it. So you get a really nice sort of silhouette working in the hair. So that's, you know, that's how I take the old techniques and make them modern. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. So that's just one thing there. And it's like when you do other kinds of hair, like what I'm working on at the moment. I had a very interesting phone call last year where at the Art Basel show in Miami, I was asked by Emilio Pucci. Emilio Pucci is a famous 60s sort of designer in Italy who's still famous now. They have stuff all over the world. Italian designer. And his daughter wanted me to do her window installations in Miami, because it's Art Basel, so they wanted the art to look really like what they did in the 60s and the sort of 70s, but modern, okay? So what happened was, and I'll show you the pictures and stuff here, what happened was really interesting because they had a wonderful hairdresser called Alba, who was a great hairdresser, and she did amazing hairstyles in the 70s and the 60s for Emilio Pucci. And I've got some pictures to give you an idea of what they did. And this is a sort of thing, I don't know if you can see very closely, this is a sort of thing that they were doing, which is really interesting. They had these loops of hair, okay? And so they wanted me to, she phoned me up here actually, and I was a bit depressed, you know, I just left Matrix after 24 years, and I thought, what am I going to do, and et cetera, you know. And, you know, I thought, oh, gosh. And she said, I've been following you for years, Nicholas. And I said, well, how? She said, I've always loved these kind of works that you've done. Like, this is my work here, which won 2012 North American Hairdresser of the Year for Avant-Garde. And Roberto Agresti did the photograph, David Madrick did the makeup. A collaboration of a lot of people. So she really loved that. So then she came back to me and said, well, what I want you to do is this modern sort of collaboration. So what we came up with was quite interesting. So I hope we can see these pictures. So they wanted very 60s, 70s. So this is a kind of thing. Can you see that clearly? So this is the kind of thing that we did in their installation in their store. And then we did all their windows. And the whole thing was done with drawing, because they said, we want tear sheets, because Emilio Pucci is part of LMVH, which is a big group. And this is the other picture they really liked, which they really love this picture here, which is blades of grass that I invented, this sort of technique. So that's that. And then what we did as a result, we came up, just trying to find that one with the windows now, with some really interesting looks. Like this was one of them, for instance. Can you see that? I'll put that right up. This is one of them that was in the window. Hang on to that, and then I'll show you the other windows, which is in here, which is really interesting, which is, hang on, can you see that clearly? Yeah? You can see where the windows are. It's not that clear, is it? Where's the other picture, Carol? So we're working in all kinds of different things, but that's the first time the hairdresser was really asked to do the Emilio Pucci windows, which I thought was quite cool, you know? So we worked on. And the best part about the whole thing was that, for instance, I had to do drawings of this project. So Emilio Pucci was a great artist, and he did drawings of the Dolce Vita, and this is one of the pieces I really love. Look. So it's all made of real hair. So thank you to Great Length for giving me the hair to do it. That's a big shout out for them, because it's a lot of money to do 10 heads of hair like that. Believe me, they did a great job, and it was fantastic. And so when they said, we'll do drawings, so what I did drawings of the actual looks, if you can see that here on the bottom, of what it was going to look like, the hair, the shapes, like this, for instance, like that. And then, I never knew it, but Emilio Pucci, actually on the bottom here, you'll see his drawings for the film in the 1950s, the La Dolce Vita, where he had these very extreme hairstyles and looks that he created, which I thought was fantastic, you know? And they made it into the invites for the event. So that was really interesting for a hairdresser to be asked. So everything that we tend to do comes from drawings, you know, the foundations. Like this is for a Naha entry, where you see all the drawings, and then you see the foundations, the drawings, the inspiration, and everything that comes with it. So it all starts with a drawing, basically, because, you know, tear sheets are not original. You're taking tear sheets from a magazine. Why would you want to do that? So they're not really original, you know. I mean, in the early days, when I started doing this kind of hair, it was very raw. It wasn't very nice at all. Like these are some early things that I did here, which is basically, they said they wanted their hair in the shape of a bird. So this is for a TV commercial, a still shot. So I did the hair in the shape of a bird. And they said, well, it looks like a bird, Nick, and that's actually hair, all right? And then they said, we want the hair in the shape of a cactus and a tack. So this is a cactus, which was very raw, right? And then also in the shape.
Wait, that is not hair.
Yes, it is. I made it out of hair. And then this is a tack. Look, this is the old sheet from, this is 1982. And that's actually a tack that I made out of hair. And then, of course, after the ad, what it was is frequent wash. It was like, you know, raw, brittle hair. And then they all came out looking fabulous, like the end picture there. They all looked amazing, you know? So that was my early days of doing special effect hair. And then this one was crazy. This is 1982. But they said, make the hair in the shape of a car speaker. So what I did was make the hair like that, which is insane, isn't it? She was quite a famous model. So I started with doing that. And oh, by the way, can you do a punk? You know, if you look at my website, you'll see punks in it, and they were very raw. So this was a punk that I did for a famous TV commercial in England, actually, by Paul Wayland. Because I worked with all these people like Ridley Scott, you know, the great film director. I worked with all these people in the early days because they directed TV commercials. They didn't really do motion pictures as such, and then they went from TV commercials, like Ridley Scott, for instance, everybody knows him. He was a commercial artist. So he used to draw advertisements for magazines. Most magazines did not have photographs. They had drawings in, okay? And Ridley came from Yorkshire, and he was an artist. He was a drawer, a painter. And then he came down, he said, I hate these TV commercials. Can I direct? And they said, no, you can't. You have to be a union member. So he hired a union member, and he started directing television commercials. Like films, amazing television commercials. He had a terrific eye. And I started working with him. I worked with him almost 11 years, a long time ago. But the great thing about what he was, and this is important for the viewers to understand, you have to have, as a hairdresser for Naha, you have to have the eye of the camera. And my first day with Ridley, I did a Campari advertisement for the cinema with the big screen, right? So I do the hair, you know. I thought, oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah, get down there, this is fantastic, you know. I'm in the film business now, it's fantastic, you know. And there's a thing called rushes, where the next morning at 5 a.m. you go and see what they shot the day before, yeah? And I'm in the back of this viewing room, and Ridley's down there, and he said, where is the beep, beep, beep hairdresser? So I thought, oh my God, I was trying to slip down the chair so they couldn't see me. So I went down the front and said, Ridley, what's going on? He said, look, the hair looks like shit. It's terrible, absolutely dreadful. And I said, well, I'm really sorry about that. He said, how long have you been doing hair for cinematography? And I looked at my watch, and I said, 1 day, 1 hour and 3 minutes, yeah? And instead of saying, get lost, he said, you will sit next to me. Bring your artist, sit next to me. When they light it, I will show you what you need to do, yeah? Oh my God, and I worked with him for almost 11 years, and I've seen the film Alien, the first one that he directed. He got fired 3 times. It was too frightening, they thought. And he's actually drawn every frame of every picture in the film because he was a commercial artist. And I've watched it, pulling the pages over and seeing his drawings. Unbelievable man. And that's what the clean eye is about. So I learned so much through people like Ridley Scott, the late Tony Scott, Adrian Lyne. I've worked with all kinds of amazing people, but they were very humble. They said, look, you know, we like you, you're a bit of fun, so come on, you know, but get with the program. This is how you put on wigs, you know, this is how you do this. I had people help me with lace-based wigs and to train me. Makeup artists were amazing in England. So that really helped me to do avant-garde hair and to do different things in a different way, you know?
Hey, Nicholas, I have a question for you, and this is a Ridley Scott question. Obviously, when Alien as a movie came out, it was revolutionary because it didn't have all these crazy special effects like they have now. A lot of it was meant to be dark, and the lighting was a huge aspect. Do you think hairdressers now, because of 3D printing and access to different tools and things, you know, the NAHA Award, somebody had made a comment about NAHAs sort of haven't changed so much. We happen to have a lot of great hairdressers in our arsenal that we know that have done things that you can't believe what can be suspended. Never seen a cactus before until you showed us, but do you think some of the technology changes like they've adapted for filmmaking will start to make their way into hair, especially in the avant-garde world or for the shows?
Well, I think that, you know, I think that mediocrity is a terrifying thing to experience. And I love the purity of doing the real thing the first time. I don't really like, oh, we'll do it in post, we'll add on this, we'll add on that. And I think it looks very bland, it looks very matte. And I think when you're doing hair for photography, it should be very fresh and touchable and feelable, even in categories like avant-garde. I don't really believe it should, you know, I won, trying to remember, it's 06, 8, 10 and 12, with very different looks. And I got into 12 finals, I think, but that's not really what it's about. It's the exercise, it's the discipline of having the idea is the most difficult thing of all. You know, if you want to do NAHA, you've got to think of an idea, you've got to develop it, you've got to work on it. You can't just turn up at the studio, you know, you've got to have a sort of reserve thing, you know, that you're doing. I mean, I worked, I mean, I've got a haircut here I did in 1978, and I did it with, I was doing this hair show, and there was this terrible people saying, oh, you've got to cut with these scissors and those scissors and this scissors. And I said to my assistant, Mark, his name, well, he was great. I said, Mark, go and get one of those fire buckets in the room I was doing it in, and go and get a bottle of Heineken. He said, you can't drink on stage, Nick. And I said, yeah, this was in Australia. And I said, we're going to do a haircut with a broken bottle. And we did it, just because I wanted to force myself to do something different. And this was actually what it looked like, if we get it out of here. Got so much stuff here. So this was, and also, we had no products. We had no products at all, right? So I had to get Murray's, which is a men's product, greasy product, right? Which is made out of petroleum to put into the hair. So this was actually, that was actually the look that we did. She's only about 5'4", this girl, but that was done, God, very late 70s with a broken bottle. But we photographed it, which is quite interesting. It's quite a different separate. So you've got to really force yourself to do different things and to feel uncomfortable. And I think when you go into a training program of any kind, if you're feeling uncomfortable, that's good. That is good. I mean, I went 18 years ago to Sassoon's in Santa Monica, and they said, "Why are you here?" I said, "Well, I want to learn something new. I'm a bit stale actually, and I want to feel comfortable about, uncomfortable." And they made me do this ridiculous haircut, which took 5 hours, and it was amazing. It was all zigzag partings, and I got a friend of mine to color it swan white, And I was doing a job actually for Laura, and I did the next show. It was in San Antonio or something, and they said, "Nicholas, that is not the trend." I said, "No, it's my version, darling," because I had to do this haircut, which was amazing. So, where do you get inspiration for Naha? Which is a really good question, because Naha is unique. It's having the idea. My late brother was a great painter, great artist, and he was marvelous. And his daughter is also incredible. And I took her, she came from England, and I took her down to Long Island to Jackson Pollock's house, where Jackson Pollock made these amazing paintings with the drizzling and the paint and different fibers that he used in his paintings, which were fascinating. And then we came back, and then we started working on ideas and how to change textures in a very modern, fresh way. And the paint splodging and stuff looks fine. We've done that quite nicely, but then you have to edit everything down. Sometimes it's too much. Edit, strip it away, strip it away, strip it away. It's like actors. Jack Lemmon, who a lot of you won't know, he was a great actor of the 60s and the 50s, and he was a stage actor. And his first film, he did 175 takes on his first take, because they said, "Don't do anything, don't do anything, don't do anything. Just stand there, just talk," because it's film, it's not theatre. Theatre is a totally different story. So to that point, what I've been working on is quite interesting, because this is very translucent, but this is actually made of different colours of horse's hair. There's actually, because I saw Jackson Pollock's amazing fibrous results, I really wanted to investigate what I could do and how fine I could make their hair, And that was just purely from a visit to Jackson Pollock's studio in Long Island, where you see on the floor all these splodges and stuff. And this is very, very strong, this fabric. So, and people have tried to copy this, but there's a secret to how you put it together, It's very wiry, but very interesting. They've actually made some clothes out of this as well for shows. So it's a whole total look. So that's another sort of technique. And then coming to this is quite fun. This is actually what we work. This is called a split. This is actually a split weft. So basically we braid the hair, and then what we do with a razor, we cut weft in half to get this very almost cage-like sort of Alexander McQueen feel to hair, So we're always looking at different ways of doing things. I mean, there's a host of stuff we could go through, because, vision is the art, and, of seeing things that are invisible. Vision is the art of seeing things that are invisible. So you have to find new things. You can't just be me too. And what I find, looking at I love enthusiasm, I love young people, I love doing great things, but what I really want people to do is to discover new things that they can do with hair, new things they can do at Naha. To me, it's all a little bit the same. Does that make sense?
It does. And Nicholas, a very good friend of ours on the show, Nikki Lee, who's helped a tremendous amount of people with their PPP loans. Thank you so much, Nikki. She had a great question for you. She said,
I love her. Yeah, she's great.
Oh, I mean, who doesn't love her? I think Iva runs the show, though, but I'm only saying that because Iva's on here and she sends me all my files. So she asked, what are the two? Wait, now of course everybody's commenting on what I said. What are the top 2 or 3 tricks to have a successful Naha entry, and how can Naha help your career in the beauty industry?
Well, I think, you know, I mean, I came here as a hair cutter to America, and I've ended up, you know, doing all this creative stuff because people asked me to do insane things, you know, in the film business. And that's how I started honing my skills. The most important thing is to have the idea, okay? To have the idea, start drawing shapes and working and thinking of new ideas, you know. And quite honestly, I'll just show you something if I can do it, if I can. But what I always use is black paper, yeah? I use black paper like this, and then what I do, I use silver pens, and then I can sort of start to sort of create, I don't know where we are, start to sort of create shapes and things, and just do a basic face, and start to really investigate what shapes I can really sort of create. So at the moment I'm working on something that's quite interesting. It's almost like, you know, shapes that come off the head, which is quite interesting. So, you know, I'm always trying to do different, you can probably see there, I'm always trying to do different things. So I'm always drawing wherever I am to try and locate what I could do differently with hair that would not look like hair, but it is hair, you know? And the other thing is, as a tip for Naha, I don't use synthetic hair. I use real hair. I mean, this is made of horse's hair, I just showed you. I don't use synthetic hair, I use real hair. And, you know, I mean, like this year, it was like they could use anything. Somebody used a mop on somebody's head. And I don't think that will happen again because it should be pure hair, you know, really. So first of all, get the idea. Think of an original idea, okay? A theme. What are the girls going to look like? And if you notice most of my work, there's not over makeup. The makeup doesn't take over the shot. If you look at my work, what I'm trying to do is you look at the picture and you think, wow, it's an amazing picture. But you don't say, oh, look at that makeup, look at that hair, look at that person, look at this. No, it's just one original theme. It's very thematic. And it has to have a follow through. So whatever you do has to have a theme. So think of it. It might be, you know, once I used, I read about samurai warriors in Japan, and I found out that Osuban samurais were actually women. When the men went away, the women protected the town, and they had these little masks on. And I thought, ooh, that's interesting. And they were more vicious than the men, actually. And then I looked historically, and I found these great shapes. And I started building the shapes, then I started making it, and then I came up with, you know, some very sort of interesting shapes, you know, that were quite sort of overwhelming, like this one here. If you look at that shape here, you'll see that it's very sort of interesting. You know, can you see the black one there? Look, there you go. You can see that's the foundation, and then I built it into a shape a bit more like that. Okay. Then I had a whole theme, and I mixed it with natural hair, so it was quite interesting. That's a good question. So really research different things and try different things out. And I had full-size mannequins. I don't know if you see in the back here. I've got a full-size mannequin right at the back. This baby out here. I've got with you probably see in the back, and that's the dress is actually made of CDs. It's made of CDs, right? So we made that, and then I've got this sort of teal kind of coloured hair there, and that was something I experimented with years ago, and we did a whole show with CD dresses mixed with real, you know, and it became a theme. It was very interesting. So, you know, just think of new ideas, draw things down, you know, really lay it all out, and just get a very clear mind on what you want to really do, you know, as far as Naha's concerned, because it's sort of, there's lots of judges. I was judging for 10 years. I didn't judge last year, but I was judging for 10 years. I'll probably do it next year. And it's really important. The theme is very important. The fluidity of what you do. The connection between the models is very important. That's what people judge on, yeah? And then, of course, the quality of the hair and the overall, you know, all your picture, is it glued together with the other girls, you know? it has to really glue itself together. And is it a very strong image that's original? Originality is a real key. And I think that's something that's, is lacking in many ways. You see Me Too, Me Too, Me Too. Oh, I've seen that before. They're just taking it to a different place. So, I'm working with different textures of hair, different things that, I've taken some of the things I've been working with are a year old and they're not yet right. I can't show them to anybody until it's absolutely 100% because, it's got to look amazing. So I'd like to do some more photographic work after this. It's been a tough year so far. So hopefully by next year we'll start getting back into the studio and, and doing some beautiful new work, something different. And I think that'd be really cool, Okay.
There were quite a few people that asked if you have a quarantine class. You're out in the Hamptons right now?
Yes, I am. Yeah.
They all know where you are. I don't know if it's this contact tracing or Google is letting them know where you're located. So there's been quite a few people that want to know if they can quarantine at your house for at least the next 14 to 21 days and help you with all of this work.
Great, isn't it? Yeah? Well,
and I'm not lying either. This has come up about 5 or 6 times on Facebook already.
Really, because we have we've had courses here in April, and also we had courses out in Palm Springs that we do and stuff like that. But obviously we're redoing everything. We're going to find out what's going on here. And we don't have big groups. We have small groups, no more than about 8 people max, and so everything's pretty distanced out. So when we get back to business, we'll be in business for that reason. And we're hoping to get something online as well eventually, which would be really good. I mean, it's very difficult to go through what we do here in, an hour and a bit or whatever, a couple of hours. It's like very tricky to explain this journey of a lifetime, if you will. But, if you get hold of us at you get hold of us at FrenchINTL@AOL.com, which is my, which is my email. That's probably the easiest thing to do at the moment. We have a website as well, but we're rebuilding it. Get hold of us because we do, we do everything from, in fact, this girl here, who's I forgot to bring her out, was it's about Bridget Bardot looking girl here. Looks very sexy. This is cut entirely with the technique that my father, the tease cutting technique that my father did, which is interesting. So we do cutting, we do long hair, and we actually do like courses for Naha, where we take you through the whole process of what you have to do for Naha. Also, all the different techniques that you can use with hair that are very, very different, that nobody really uses, that I've used over the years. And I have everything here in the Hamptons as far as all the Naha stuff that I've done. So we have all the sort of the laboratory, if you will, downstairs, where we're upstairs now, but the laboratory downstairs where we have everything at hand, all the different foundations that we use. There's so many different foundations, and that's another key. People use all kinds of things, but we've got specific foundations we've discovered that are very, very useful for, being the foundation of your hairdressing, of your hair, and different ways of treating hair and, and working with it. And I think that's the whole thing, is really to try and seek different textures, different looks, a different feel to what you do. So it's original, and it's nothing's easy, nothing can't, and, like I said, if you feel uncomfortable, that's a good thing, because you're learning something new, It's like, I remember a group coming once to a class. I said, stop, everybody stop. You're fabulous at doing those braids. Let's do something you can't do, And we found every one of the girls and boys, we found something they couldn't do, so they could really go away with something totally original, And I think that the originality of what we do is the most important thing, And, when we get back into business, get hold of us, let's keep in touch with everybody, and ask any questions you want. We do get back to people, because obviously there's a huge amount to cover, but, this is just basically a little hairdressing thing, touching on my dad's stuff and my stuff and what we're doing. But obviously, if we do a course, it's like an avant-garde course, or it's a hairdressing course, it's an editorial course, it's a classical course, where we show all the different ways of backcombing hair, and there's a lot of different ways of backcombing hair. foundational skills with the arms. You know, there's so much to learn. You know, it's not just coming out with a mannequin and whipping it up, you know? Does that make sense? So, and the other thing is we have a few products like the wristband thing I've got here. It's a magnetic wristband for all your pins and stuff that we sell here. And also the hairbrushes, the shiner brush, which is a really useful tool, which I designed after a makeup artist had something similar, and she buffed the hair with me years ago, and it got shiny. I thought, oh, this is quite interesting. And this is a really good tool for doing ponytails, session work, everything like that. So, so that's the story, really. So the next thing we'll be doing, hopefully, we'll do some other work with you guys, and we'll go through perhaps a whole haircut or whatever you would like. So we just need to get some requests into what people want to really see. Does that make sense? Okay.
It does.
Yeah. And Andrew, did you like your Vogue? Did you?
I love my Vogue.
You loved your Vogue. Wasn't that crazy?
That was,
Do you remember that? The first
I do.
was an African-American girl. Her name was Jan Stevenson. And I didn't know what I was doing. And the hair was moving.
That I knew.
Shoot it. And, you know, it's exactly what you didn't need at that time. But at least it got us in Vogue, didn't it? You know?
It did.
Yeah.
You know, Nick, I think, you know, and some people said, well, it would be great to bring back avant-garde. I think that I know that we're in a unique time right now. We have all our clients sitting at home, twiddling their thumbs, looking for something to do. My God, if we could teach them some of these things that you're showing, you know, how to do this. What a great thing for a salon owner or salon to do.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I think now's the time to really...
Now's the time.
Is to do something different and to add to... It's like having a, you know, you're adding words to your dictionary, you know, so you can really add to everything that you do. So when you come back in, people go, wow, you know, it's like, that's really fresh, you know, it's like really new. And take a different way of looking at the clients, different way of taking them to a different place sometimes is so important because, you know, it's like the great Roger Thompson said to me, you know, take a Polaroid in those days of all your clients and look at it on Sunday and have a large brandy. And I did. And all the clients I was doing the same hairstyles. I got lazy, I got tired. I was doing the same thing. You know, same updo, the same. Oh my goodness, I thought, wow. And he was right. The great Roger was right. He said, you're doing the same thing there. You need to break away. Everybody's an individual and should be treated as such. You know? And I think rather the analogy my dad said, if you understand the inside of the client's head, you have a chance of getting the outside right. I think that was brilliant, isn't it?
Yeah,
and that's the change, isn't it, of who's sitting in your chair, you know, of understanding who you have in front of you. And also to come back after this absolute nightmare with a fresh attitude and a fresh feeling, because it's going to be different. It's going to be different, you know.
Your dad's saying is going to go on a T-shirt I'm going to make. We have the luxury of having the weekend off from all these shows, so I'm going to put it on there, and I'm going to put your father's name right on the bottom. But I might have to put it on the top unless I turn my camera so you can see the whole thing. But you know what, Nicholas? Here's a question for you. That, you know, clients have been holed up at home. Stylists are all worried about timing and can they blow dry, can they not blow dry, and all these things. I feel like a little bit of this creative aspect of what you're adding in could just add that tiny bit of interest and make them realize what they missed about the salon. If you asked me before March 14th when we closed our salon in New Jersey, and I don't do hair, by the way, I just do everything but hair, but every client was a 5N, every client got the same haircut, everybody was long layers in New Jersey, and you know, I'm at the front. I'm bored of looking at them coming in, and I feel like now they're so enamored about you know, what we do in the salon industry and how much they miss us. Do you think this is a great opportunity to reinvent, to be able to say, hey, these are some great things I learned, and to try to kind of shake up the mix a little bit of the mom crowd that's been stuck at home?
I think so. And I think having, you know, examples of different things and different colors and different, you know, it's like, you know, I'm surrounded by all these different mannequins and stuff. And there's a reason really, because, you know, they're all different colors and things that I'm playing with and different things. And, it's, I've got great people who help me out, but it's just to get a different feeling. And it's almost a great thing to do, even mannequins. If you've got really nice mannequins, put eyelashes on them and stuff, and colour them beautifully so they look very different and fresh. And so we're playing with this, we're doing that, we're doing this, And I think that's important to, wow, you suddenly become creative, it's very cool. And a lot of people I work with in salons, over the years, going and teaching in salons, I get them to do a whole window of mannequins and stuff and really get out of the box, and people say, my God, what's going on? But at least they're looking, what's happening? You're progressing, you're moving forwards, you're developing your clientele. And there's so many great hairdressers now in America that, people will go elsewhere unless you really have a fresh attitude to what you're doing. You're going to get clients that are going to have the same haircut forever, that. But you get a lot of people who are really expecting change and you don't know it. So you've got to really find out what's inside that head and say, okay, let's try this. This is really cool. And now you've got, you can show people sort of nuances, sort of different feelings, different moods that are happening, are flying around. Because, fashion is really fleeting, but technique always stays the same, Fashion is fleeting, that's what moves. Technique has always stayed the same. So really, really revisit your technique. Perhaps your skills at colouring should be better. Perhaps your hair cutting skills could be better. Perhaps your combing out could be better. Your foundational skills, and find solutions, find quick ways of doing hair, I did the braiding thing the other day and somebody said, oh my goodness, it's so quick. And, if I get a wedding party, I could really knock that wedding party out there, look fabulous, and it would be different and fresh and new. And I think that's, that's the way to go. You're the professional. You should be in the driving seat, should be steering the ship, and your salon should be really, it should rub off you, And things are going to change because, like you said, blow drying is going to blow all these germs all over the place. I mean, in Molton Brown in the 70s, we finger dried hair. And the client went out with semi-wet hair, and she went home. We found out actually that the condition of the hair was fantastic, but we got them into very loose, soft hair, because we had the 3-day week. We didn't have hair dryers 3 days a week. So,
Nicholas, my wife Angela's on the Facebook side, and I'm answering questions, which I usually do both sides between Zoom and Facebook. And she said that you should write down a book of quotes for the hair industry, and I don't doubt it. I think that might be, not that you could be any more famous than you are already, but I think a book of quotes from Nicholas French would be a very fantastic way to celebrate your birthday eve.
Hey, Nicholas.
Let me try again.
Someone asked, can you show us the berry color? It's over your shoulder, A-line wig cut. You see that one?
Oh, here?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is actually, I'm going to take her off here, hang on a minute. This is actually very interesting because when I was working with Emilio Pucci, great lengths were fantastic and they gave me loads and loads and loads of hair. So I actually cut this myself to make it look different. And I cut it with my dad's sort of technique around the front as well, which was really fun, yeah? You see, yeah, there. And that's actually a wig, but it's synthetic. And they colored it before, which is amazing. So to the point we were talking about before, Andrew, a lot of the salons you have, get some mannequins, dress them up, put them in a little grouping somewhere, and change them every week. And then people would come and say, wow, this is a really nice color. How do I, and things like that, you see? And that's going to help, isn't it? And change it up, do different things. I mean, the teal over here, this is another wig right in the background. That's a beautiful color. This is actually a wig a friend of mine, Doug Martucci, he colored that, which was fantastic. And this was a really beautiful color that Doug did as well. He did this actually with, I'm trying to think of the color he did, with milkshake color actually. And it's really difficult to color mannequin heads, really difficult. It's not like, because they're so stripped down, aren't they? But this is a very beautiful, pretty color. And, put it in your salons, do something different. This is really cool. This is nice. That's a lovely feel to that hair. very molten brownie in the 70s, but, you know, it's a great way of showing clients, you know, what you can do and different ideas, you know, and especially with texture, because that's going to be, it's going to come through big texture again, you know, and I think that's quite interesting. And even this white, almost ash colored hair, I quite like. This is interesting that we've been working with. Look, and this is a wig as well. This is real hair, you know, and this is real hair. So you can really, you know, show clients all kinds of different options, if you will, of what you can do, you know, and do your lowlights and highlights and everything else and all the bright colors, you know, but, you know, it's all these bright sort of wild colors you see everywhere, but you don't really see them on clients, do you? You know, you see the odd sort of cool person, but, you know, like this is, for instance, I don't think you saw it, this is actually a haircut I did entirely with that technique from the 50s. It's rather like a Brigitte Bardot sort of thing that I'm doing here, yeah? And that's done totally with tease cutting. Nothing is, no straight lines. You can see how that's quite interesting. You know, it comes very, very loose. You know? And it's very, very cool. Reminds me of the late, great Jean-Louis David sort of work. You remember? Jean-Louis used to do all this sort of,
Yep.
I think, razor cutting, you know?
He did.
Yeah. Do you remember we went out for dinner once? We went to Chinatown, didn't we? Years ago, with Johnny David, you and me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Do you remember that?
I do.
And this was, he was very cool and all this kind of work. But this is a sort of a little bit more today look, how it would happen today, because it's more sort of, you know, a lot of the hair's very sort of nothingy today, but at the same time, you've got to have the cut there, you've got to have the color, you've got to have the style, you've got to have everything else. And I think a little bit more hairdressing will come in, you know, because, you know, those looks you see in the magazines, they don't really translate to clients a lot because it's too sort of nothing, you know, isn't it? You know, it's not, like I always say, very cleverly, I always say, and I was working with a company last year, a fabulous company actually, just to do their main stage shows for their big meeting. And they showed me all their new work, which is beautiful for products, you know, all the photographs. And I said, but the thing is, that doesn't really relate. It doesn't really go from the page to the stage, you know? And the same thing, it doesn't really go from the page to the salon. It would look like this very low sort of, you know, nothing hair. It doesn't really work. So you have to sort of meet in the middle, which will be this kind of a look, you know, meet in the middle. And then it's going to be great. You know, it's just the feeling of it, isn't it? You know, and I think it's great. You get touchable hair and stuff like that. And it's all about individuality, because in my dad's day, everybody's hair was the same, except for his design disorder, which nobody wanted for years. And then it changed from, you know, uniformity to individuality, where everybody was, you know, when we worked in the 70s, everybody, there was this sort of theme, but then it sort of changed around and everybody was like very individual. You know, some people had curly hair, some people had straight hair, you know, some people preferred different silhouettes and stuff. And I think that's where the differential is today. It's very individual. So it's quite a difficult thing to really read your client and to know exactly what and how far you can go with the hair color, with the haircut, with the personality that you have sitting in front of you. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Makes sense to me. You know, Vivian presented some time ago, it seems like decades ago, her consultation to answer. She has a very specific consultation that answers that point, because it is difficult.
Yeah.
And she has a system of consultation. And I'm thinking that what you do, this is the fuel. We can design a business, but we need to put fuel in the business. And it's the creativity of our teams, of our people, that really propels the business. If you know what I mean,
exactly.
Right? I mean,
Without that,
And with that being said, Nick, so many people on here tonight, you brought back their passion during this miserable time. I could see it just from the, you gave everybody a gift gave your birthday gift to everybody else. tonight. No doubt about it. You killed it, because I see everybody, it just brought back their inspiration of why they started doing hair.
Yeah, because there's so much to it, isn't there, really? I mean, it's so much you can do with hair. Like, you know, my dad gave me my passion, and then throughout my life, I've been very privileged to have great people around me, you know, and saying, no, Nick, you need to shut up and listen. What are you doing over there? That's crazy. That's awful. And I've always listened to people, and I've always tried to do a big cross section of things, and to be, you know, and to try and make it exciting, and to try and make people realize what they're doing and how they change people's lives, which they do every day. And especially through this terrible time. I mean, you know, Freddie, my dad, he was out of his salon for 7 years, and that was really tough. But when he came back in, the story I told, he suddenly became successful by sticking to his guns. But it took him the whole of the war for the people to really realize, and they've been through such a bad time. And before the war, all their hair was heavily set, yeah, with like waves and like pin curls. And after the war, they wanted freedom. And hallelujah, my dad had design disorder. That was the one. Nobody else did it. So all their hair was moving, and people loved it. You know, I mean, you know, Vidal Sassoon didn't come in until the middle 60s, because I know I was there. And you know what? He actually used the Denman brush and back brush to the hair. I saw him do it. And his hair was quite bouffant until the middle 60s, when he tried out some like geometric cuts, which took him to a different place, which he learned from Raymond. He wasn't the first person to do a geometric cut. Raymond did the first geometric, with tiny little shears like that, you know? When I first went to Sassoon's, I had long shears like that. I cut a bit of my finger, and then he threw them away and gave me some short ones. And I learned the whole trade again as far as cutting hair is concerned. And I think then everybody became individuals, which was interesting after that. You know, at the time they were all the same, and then suddenly you saw breakaway groups. But it was very interesting how the industries developed, and how people now, you know, incredible the techniques that people have. And I think you can always learn something new every day. Every day. I mean, I say when I can, and it's very disturbing times now. We're going through some awful times here, but so is everybody else, you know, in every possible way, financially, creatively, whatever. And I always say to myself, you know, when was the last time I created something new for the first time? Think about it. And that pushes me, you know?
Yeah, you know when it was? It was tonight. Because I have to be honest with you, we've done these calls. I don't know if this is, I think we all have no idea how many calls. I still think it's 29 tonight. We all have different numbers, but there's a bunch of people that are on. There's always a bunch of rewatch on Facebook. We've had great educators from the business side. We've had people that have helped with the loans, and people that have helped with,
Yeah, it's been fantastic.
you know, and obviously haircutters and things. I know Mary Wilson and Phil are both on commenting on Facebook how much they love you.
Yeah, they're good friends, very good friends of ours. We did
Well, they're actually both
British
sleeping in your
Asian.
garage right now. They left Palm Springs because they couldn't take the warm, beautiful weather, and they're coming to New York to support you. But I have to be honest that you know, from what the inspiration is that you've given everybody, I feel like after 5, 6, 7 weeks, a lot of these states, everybody's is mad. You know, who wants to open, who's afraid to open. We're sort of in a crux. I feel like this history lesson you've given us tonight has been absolutely needed, and I'm glad you spent your 40th birthday with us tonight.
40th, yeah. I don't know really. I can't really remember, but there we are. But you know, yeah, because I think that, you know, Dad went through the war and everything. We went through the 3-day week, which is awful. That went on for months and months and months, and you know, it was very tough, especially the wartime was terrible. But you know, at the end of the day, they slowly came back, they slowly built up, they slowly developed, you know, wonderful experiences. And you know, the whole of England was bankrupt, and my dad made his salon out of paper mache and chicken wire to make vases for flowers in. There was nothing, you couldn't buy anything. And so he started with nothing and tore old magazines up and put them on the ceiling like collage, and created a different kind of an artistic space. And he actually took all the pictures of hair out of the windows of his salons eventually, and he just had the sculpture. So people would think it's a creative environment. So people came in, it's a hair salon, oh my goodness, it looks really cool. Because he thought that if people had pictures in the window, people would say, I don't like that hairstyle, I'm not going in there. So he drew people into his world and then created this magic, which I can never forget, you know, the excitement. I can see the faces of people, you know. And somebody phoned me up about a year and a half ago, not phoned me up, she sent me an email and said, I'm Adrian, you won't remember me, I worked at Court Street. And you were 17, Nick, and I was 16. And I said, I remember exactly who you were. You know, she was fabulous looking, by the way. I said, exactly who you were. And I have a picture of you doing a model at school night in the 60s. Can you imagine? I sent it to, with a CD of my dad's working on this, you know, he used to work on newsreels doing hair, you know, to promote. And isn't that funny that I remember everything about it, and also the service. And I think that's something we can, coming out of this pandemic, we can all get back into, is doing amazing service for the client. So when she comes in, she has her own gown in a bag all freshly laundered. She has her own brush. She has her own comb. Everything's absolutely for her, just for her. That's it, end of story. So she doesn't feel, you know, oh my God, where's that brush been? Where's this been? You know, whatever. We have to find a way of making the experience absolutely fabulous. And this is an opportunity. And I looked up on my dad's stuff, and my goodness, what they did. They made shampoo at the backwash for each client. They had a machine which had like eggs and rum in, and all mixed it all up in little pots for each client. It's extraordinary. You know, because everything was individualism, you know? And, you know, all the coffee cups, every individual coffees. This is before, you know, before time itself in the 1950s, early 60s, you know. It was a very different experience. You really felt special. And I think that's what we've got as a sort of winding up statement. That's what we've got to try and do, you know, for our clients. I think we've got to make them feel amazing again. And people are damaged. They're going to be damaged. This is like a war. They're going to be damaged, you know. And I think, you know, mentally and physically, and they probably lost friends and stuff. You know, it's a horror story, isn't it, for a lot of people, you know. And I think that, you know, we've got to be very supportive, and we're going to have to be very strong, because hairdressers are really the center of a community, aren't they? You know, they don't care what it was. From the turn of the century, when the barbershops, you wanted news, you went to the barbershop. You want to know what's going on in town, you went to the barbershop, you know. And now it's spread out into, you know, into salons and spas and things. And everybody's a real community, and we've got to really, you know, go back to the future, go back in time, and really go back to that luxurious experience and individuality, and having longer hours, but everybody will be staggered and spaced out, so they don't feel, you know, they're in a busy place. I mean, I went with Carol today, you know, to go shopping, food shopping. And I mean, there weren't many people in this food store at all. And I was terrified of getting near to anybody. And I've got the gloves on, I've got the mask on, I've got everything else. And, you know, it's just fear, isn't it? It's fear. You don't know what's going to happen. You know, it's, we were tested and everything, you know, and they phoned us up and said, you know, everything's negative, it's great, but don't go by the test. I thought, oh, terrific, you know.
Don't go by
the test. And we snuck in, you know, one person took us in all covered up to a friend of mine's a doctor. And then they phoned us up 2 days later and said, oh, well, don't go too much by the test. It's just terrifying, isn't it? You know? It's
James,
just,
is there a way we can open up everyone's microphone? So we can sing Nick happy birthday.
I don't know, but you know, it's funny, Derek, there's a possibility with the attendees, but you know what's funny, Nick? I've been thinking about you all day. When I was 30 years ago now, I ran a restaurant that I probably shouldn't have run because I thought I could, but I really couldn't. And I remember being outside and someone had, you know, somebody's getting engaged or something, and
yeah.
it was a birthday, so the staff, everybody was busy. It was Saturday night. I walk over with the candle and the cake, and I look at the soon-to-be husband, and I give him the wink, like, hey, we're going to sing happy birthday. And he says, happy, and then I have to sing the rest by myself. So I really wanted to come on and sing happy birthday, and I was afraid Derek and Andrew were going to let me serenade you on my own, which I gladly would have done after this. But
I am unmuting everybody as we're speaking.
go ahead, go
Bear
ahead.
with me.
Right.
I
Everyone.
got to do one at a time.
So give Derek a moment.
What's that? Sounds like drowning or something.
Energy is just fantastic tonight, Nick.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Really, and Estelle says, thank you so much for being a hairstylist. She's been a hairstylist for 48 years. She
Wow.
loves dressing hair. Wonderful. I've loved all these nights and wonderful classes, and happy birthday.
Yeah, thanks a lot. That's brilliant. Thank you very much, darling.
Happy birthday.
Okay.
Everybody is on mute.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Nicholas.
Happy birthday, Nicholas.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Many, many more.
Happy birthday, Nick.
Wait.
So good, Ben.
Happy birthday.
Cheers.
Happy
Happy birthday to you.
To you.
Birthday.
Now
Awesome
in English.
night.
No, just kidding.
Awesome.
Melissa.
Anyway, I'm just gonna.
Barbara.
You're back.
Hey,
Nicholas. Barbara's on here.
birthday.
Humans. There's humans in their house.
I got
There we go. Look at all these.
Don't put
beautiful
that video
people.
on.
Nicholas, lots of happy birthdays on Facebook too. Everybody's commenting.
Many, Nicholas, really.
It's been my pleasure. It's been great to work with you again, Andrew. It's taken a long time.
Thank you for
been
honoring Nicholas'
amazing.
birthday.
Thank you so much.
Hearts.
Happy
Okay, everybody can mute themselves for 1 second now.
Yep.
You gave us the keys to the kingdom, Derek. It's all over.
I know, right?
Oh, that was Patty Mead, right?
How'd you know, James?
It's anarchy.
That's it. The natives. Mutiny on the bounty.
Believe we can achieve our father's dreams.
Bear with us 1 second, Nick. We got them all. Okay, that was fun.
All right, that's great. Brilliant. Thank you very much indeed. Anyway, great to see you. And we'll see you again, no doubt, at some stage.
Yes.
See what else we can.
We would certainly love to have you back on next time, not on your birthday, unless you want to.
Well, you will.
Um,
Well, if it's his birthday, we're in trouble. We're all in trouble. I mean,
It's funny because the last time I thought, I'm lucky I was listening to your program and I think you were saying that, oh, and tomorrow night we've got Nick French. I thought, oh my God, no, I didn't know about it. So it's like, I'm freaking out. Thank goodness I was listening to part of what you were doing. I thought, oh my goodness. I had somebody else lined out because I've been doing quite a few so little things like this, which has been great, for students and things as well, which is important. Right. So anyway, great to work with you. Lovely to see you all. And let's talk soon and see what we can do. Keep it all rolling.
Definitely, Nick.
Nicholas, thank you. Happy birthday again.
Thanks
Eric,
so much.
Andrew, thank you as always.
Birthday.
guys,
Everybody that was on the call tonight, make sure you tell all your friends to check this out on the Salon Ops YouTube channel. Show your staff, because I'm sure it will put some motivation back in them and put their heart back into the business. And what a gift. Thank you, Nicholas.
My pleasure. Okay, we'll speak soon. Take care.
speak soon.
Good luck.
Hey,
everybody.
everybody.
We'll
Thank
see
you.
you Monday, Derek.
Everybody.
Monday, right?
Yes. Yeah, so we're off for the weekend, and we will be back on at Monday night at 8 o'clock.
All right, good. Have a good
Thank
weekend.
Great weekend, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye for now.
Everybody have a great weekend.
Thank you.